Good jams. All right. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? We're back. Matt Gajewski, the preseason pioneer himself, some may say, at Matt_Gajewski on the Twitters. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D, breaking down in the two shows that Matt and I have done together. I believe they've both been showdown slates, Matt.
Yeah.
I think right?
Yeah, they have been both showdowns.
Yeah. So this is way different. We got 8 games. They got me out here doing a Saturday show.
Happy to have you, man.
Yeah, listen, if I had to do a show with anyone, I'm glad it's with you, Matt. We're doing preseason, but I mean, there's a very good reason I generally don't do Saturday shows. And no, we'll be good. But anyway, we got 8 games to talk about and some good ones. You got guys like Sean McDermott saying that the starters are going to play a healthy amount. Who knows what the hell that means? We're here to decipher all of it, break it down. And of course, you got Matt's projections. You should have those projections. If you're playing preseason football, these videos are going to help you for sure. But also, if you use the promo code TUA, TUA, very simple. We're simplifying things these days, and I'm appreciative. TUA will get you all the preseason projections for $5. For $5. Invaluable, because it's not just for this, but also for betting, for prize picks, all of that, where they have props, like a ton of props. Matt and I were shocked by that the other day. They got player props out there, and all of these preseason projections are a massive help. $5 TUA. Use that promo code awesemo.com/promos. Just click it or use TUA at checkout. All right, man, you ready to dive into this? We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Oh, and how could I forget the people that make this channel, these shows, what it is? Appreciate you guys hanging out. Happy to have all of you with us. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Well, actually, not a comment. This is live. Hit us up in chat, whatever you want to do. You want to join the channel, all that good stuff. It's right down there. All right, let's do this. So we got, Matt, we got a 3-game early slate, and then we got a 5-game night slate. And there's no like considerable contests that are of any decent size for the full slate. So we'll break it up. We'll go early slate first, and then we'll hit the main slate. Our boy Tyler Zander producing this show did a nice job of kind of differentiating that there on the sidebar. You can see that. So let's kick it off with Denver and Buffalo. Let me set the table for you, and then I want to get your thoughts. So Nathaniel Hackett doesn't give a shit about the preseason at all. Very happy. And I think, wouldn't you agree, though, that ever since they went to 3 games, even more coaches are taking that approach of, we'll use the joint practices, we'll use the scrimmages as a way to get as a primer for the regular season, and the preseason will just be rookies and like fringe players?
Yeah, they're definitely doing that. I think that might change moving forward, because joint practices are essentially just fights on the field.
Melees,
yeah. They're becoming very unproductive because you have to kick your players out of practice. I'm not sure that's going to be the case in the future, but it is right now.
How about Carolina and the Patriots, man?
That was bad. I mean, the brawl that ensued after the hit on Christian Wilkerson, I mean, they had a lot of really good players getting kicked out of practice. So that kind of defeats the purpose of resting your starters in the preseason. You can't actually get a look at your team if they're just fighting and getting kicked out, which seems to be happening across the league.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a hard hit. Like, he hovered over his lifeless body to taunt him.
Yeah, I understand why that would start a fight, and you don't have the referees there to actually break things up. I mean, it's kind of a disaster.
And then someone threw Christian McCaffrey into some lady on the sideline. So it was crazy. You're right. They are wild, but as of now, guys like Hackett don't care. I was a little bit surprised to see that McDermott planned on playing his guys a healthy amount. I will say, though, I laid 6 on Buffalo yesterday. It's a lot of points, but I think they roll them today. It's at 7 now. But from a DFS standpoint, how should we approach this?
You need to be focusing on Denver for sure. They essentially have condensed playing time at every position. Not going to see Russell Wilson, so you immediately know Brett Rippon and Josh Johnson are going to handle all the duties. They basically split the snaps evenly between them in week 1, 33 for Rippon, 35 for Johnson. Johnson technically has mobility. He's like 36 years old right now. So I don't know if it's the same mobility he once had, but he used to be able to run. I think that gives him a slight edge over Rippon. In the backfield, you're not going to see Javonte or Melvin. That means it's going to be Mike Boone, Jaquan Hardy, and Stevie Scott. Stevie Scott and Jaquan Hardy were literally signed last week, but that didn't stop them from using them. They essentially split work 3 ways right down the middle between Boone, Hardy, and Scott. Scott had a slight edge in terms of snaps and routes and opportunity. He's the guy I would prefer there. And then they have 7 receivers. So we're looking at fewest receivers on the slate. You're not going to see Sutton, Judy, Hamler still rehabbing, and Tyree Cleveland's injured. They also split snaps and routes essentially right down the middle here. So it's not like we can gain a huge edge, but if you're looking for some of these differentiating factors, Hinton did lead the team in routes, followed closely by Brandon Johnson. Not looking too much at the tight ends, but I think you do want to focus in on the Denver skill position players.
All right, just one more time at quarterback, though. How much run do you think Johnson gets? Because he looked pretty good last week.
It looks like it's going to be 50-50. I don't know for sure if he's locked up the backup job. It sure does seem like it after his performance, but Rippon's been with the team for a long time. Johnson, we know he's played for almost every single NFL team at this point. I think they're still trying to try out Rippon and see what he has. So I think you will see more 50-50. But like you mentioned, if Johnson plays really well, there is the chance they just pull him after a quarter because he's already shown pretty solid performance.
Would you say you have top options from this, again, 3-game early slate? Keep that in mind. If you guys are just jumping in, 3-game early slate, 5-game later slate. So if we're talking about this early slate, we can be a little more specific about what we're digging into since there's less players. Would you put anyone from Denver at the top of your list today for this 3-game early slate?
Yeah, I think Stevie Scott should be up there just because of the narrow opportunity. Rippon and Johnson are close. We'll talk about Detroit later. They also have 2 signal callers. I think Detroit is a slight edge over this team. It's just in terms of total in the game. You mentioned Buffalo's a heavy favorite, so Detroit has a better team total. So they project slightly better than the Denver guys. But you should definitely be considering Rippon and Johnson for tournaments. At receiver, I think you have Hinton and Brandon Johnson. Maybe not in that top tier, but they're just below it.
On the other side of this one, you've got a very interesting scenario with Sean McDermott, because what does a healthy amount mean to you? My guess for starters is a quarter, if a quarter.
I think that's right. On the back end, we haven't projected at exactly a quarter. I've been debating bringing that down just because I think there's more downside than upside. We know he's not going to play more than that, but there's a chance if he goes out there and executes a drive really well, maybe they just pull him after that. He goes out there, shows exactly what they need to see. There's really no incentive to play him more than that. But like you mentioned, it's still probably going to be the same treatment for Diggs and Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie. Those guys got the starter treatment in week 1. None of them played. So I think we are going to see the same amount of snaps for these players. It's just difficult to decipher how much. Like you said, I'm giving them a quarter max, which still makes them pretty hard to play on this slate when we know other guys are going to get a half.
Other than I don't know, like Tyler Bass, who for Buffalo stands out?
In the backfield, again, I don't think we're going to see a ton of Singletary and Cook. They gave a ton of opportunity to Raheem Blackshear and Duke Johnson. Now, Blackshear, he actually started his college career as a receiver. Think of him like a poor man's Antonio Gibson. He has that kind of skill set. And he ran 15 routes. So if you're looking for the easy pass catching back, somebody that can get some layup PPR points, Raheem Blackshear is that guy. I think he's in a tier below the Denver backs, but he's certainly worth playing, and I'll be playing him a little bit today. At receiver, Isaiah Hodgins played a ton. This guy had a 77% route share with some of the injuries they've had up at the top of their depth chart. Like Marquez Stevenson was a guy I thought was probably going to make the roster. He's been injured, and that opens the door for a 6th receiver to make the team. It's kind of been Kumaro battling Hodgins, and Hodgins is a second-year player, I believe, out of Oregon State. With a 77% route share, we should certainly be looking at him. They're giving him every opportunity to make the roster, and I think that continues today. Tight end is probably not one to look at. You've got at least 3 players out there. I think maybe you could take a look at like a Quentin Morris, who was a glorified receiver in college. He played at Bowling Green, and he kind of plays that move tight end role. Think like a Zach Ertz. That's sort of what Quentin Morris's role is. He would be like a GPP tight end.
Dude, I feel like for classic contests for preseason, you should have to play a kicker or a tight end. Like instead of, I feel like there's more strategy that goes into a kicker for the preseason than there is with tight end, where it's just like none of them do anything.
Dude, like taking you behind the scenes when I run multiple lineups, I won't be for this early slate. I'm just playing two because of lack of time. But like last night, for example, and all the other slates, when I get to the tight end position in Fantasy Cruncher, I just turn randomness way up and try to get a spread of these guys. Cause like, even in week one, when we had Matt Sokol for the Patriots playing every single snap, that was great, but he still finished with one catch for, I believe it was 1.6 points. And
Right.
then you have guys like Isaiah Likely playing a third of the snaps, but he's a receiving threat at tight end. He caught like 2 or 3 balls for like 30, 40 yards, ends up with 6 points, which is not great, but I mean, that I think led the position that day. So it just goes to show you with tight end being so volatile, I think you do want a spread of these guys unless you have a very condensed playing time situation, which we don't have right now in this early slate.
Freudian slip. Loppy, how many hats do you own? I don't know. Enough. Enough. And hey, it's good to be back as well, guys. Appreciate all that stuff. It's been a while, but it's good to be back. It's good to be back doing a football with Matt because this is the best time of the year. Let's talk Detroit and Indy. I think a lot of people get hyped up. I've been doing the betting videos over on the Odd Shopper channel. Check them out. I'm doing them for every single game, every single slate, every week of the preseason. And I think last week we saw like Hard Knocks hype people up. I love Dan Campbell. The guy, he's the man. Okay. I love him. His players love him. Everybody likes Dan Campbell. But we have to look at this as a situation where just because you're in Hard Knocks doesn't mean your team's going to score a lot of points. I remember watching Hard Knocks all the time. The teams just get the shit beat out of them all the time. But anyway, it's a pick 'em. We don't really know much of what's going on outside of Dan Campbell's not playing any of his starters. But how about Frank Wright on the other side actually kind of telegraphing for us what he's going to do, actually being a little transparent. He's like, Foles will get around the quarter. We'll give Ellinger around the quarter and a half. And then Jack Cohn will close it out. That's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Much different than in the previous game, hearing a healthy amount. So I like the specificity.
Wait till we get to Mike McDaniel. This guy pisses me off, man.
I don't even want to. Projecting Miami was maybe the hardest thing I had to do this morning.
He's like trying to be this cryptic, just out there throwing ciphers at you, expecting you to, decrypt or decode what he's saying. He's like, this week, the plan is to not know what the plan is. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? He just says wild stuff that makes no sense all the time, Matt.
I would probably think it was funny if I wasn't trying to project his team.
That's what I'm saying.
Then I just get pissed. So I'm like, I have no idea who's going to play for this team.
No.
But I guess we'll get there in a little bit. To your point on Indianapolis, thankfully, we have the exact opposite. So Ellinger is a guy I think you could definitely look at. He's extremely mobile, not really in like your Lamar Jackson way, but think of him like a poor man's Josh Allen. He's kind of a big physical quarterback. He's going to run around the goal line, stuff like that. He ran 4 times for 24 yards in their first game. And according to Reich, you're going to get a quarter or 2 out of him, which is pretty solid. He should be right up there, maybe just a little bit behind in terms of playing time compared to the Detroit and the Denver guys. I wouldn't play Cohn. I think maximum he's going to get a quarter. He's this big pocket statue, and he was really bad in week 1. He was actually not so good in college either. Foles, I'm not too interested either because I think he's kind of capped at a quarter. It's just Ellinger or move on. The running back position here is a disaster. They have the most active backs on the slate, not playing any of them. They split snaps essentially right down the middle. At receiver, you could take some shots on some of these guys. Like Desmond Patton ran a route on 53% of the dropbacks. Michael Strachan, he was injured early in camp, but they took him off PUP and he went right into full practice like immediately. He's a guy I think you can use as well, trying to make the roster. Tight end, they're going to have 5 of them. I would rather just play like a Buffalo guy because they have 3. So probably not much at tight end here. It's not the most attractive situation. So to sum it up, I think Ellinger and then maybe a receiver, Patman or Strachan would be the guys.
Okay. If we're to just look at this game as a whole, right? Are there any, and I want to make sure, we get through all these because we only have an hour for 8 games, but are there any guys that stand out as elite plays? Like if you have a 3-game slate, you're looking at these lineups, you're playing one lineup. Is there anyone where you go, I'm really trying to get this guy into my lineups.
Yeah, we can talk the Detroit side. They're a little more attractive. I like Tim Boyle.
We're losing Matt here.
What's that?
We were losing you for a second. You froze up. I think we're good now, though.
I'm back. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like my Ethernet disconnected. I didn't even touch it, but it's back.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. So I think the quarterbacks for Detroit are solid. They're both going to get around a half. Blau has upside for a little bit more, I think. He played 42 snaps in their first game compared to 27 for Tim Boyle. Blau's not known for being mobile, but he took off a surprising amount in that first game. I think he just wasn't handling pressure very well. I mean, he's a third string quarterback. We can't really expect too much from this guy, but Blau should be right up there. Tim Boyle, I think, is solid too. Running back, they have a bunch of guys active, but they really condensed their snaps. They gave Jamar Jefferson 29 in their first game. Seems to me like he's battling for that third running back spot, maybe over a guy like Justin Jackson, but they're really trying to evaluate him. Receiver, they're going to have 9 out there, but we have our preseason hero, Tom Kennedy. He's been doing this for years now. He had the highest route share on Detroit, and he produced on the field last week. I don't see any reason why this changes. He's been a preseason hero for this team for many years now. At tight end, not too interested. They have 6 on their roster. I think you're going to see a healthy amount of at least 4 of them.
How funny is it that guys can just like be that guy? You know, how about like Chase Daniel is, do you know how much money he's made in the NFL?
I don't know the exact figure, but I know it's absurd for the amount of snaps he's taken.
40 million.
How many has he played 40 snaps?
So of the games that he started in 13 years, it would average out to over 8 million per start. He's made 5 starts.
That's unbelievable.
I think it was like 250,000 per pass attempt.
Man, that's got to be the best gig in the NFL.
It's the best gig in the fucking world. It's not even the NFL. I mean, could you imagine?
And when he's out there, it's not like anyone expects anything of him.
And you're behind Mahomes too, right? Exactly. You're behind Patrick Mahomes.
And if you have to start a game, it's like you're probably
not Mahomes. Sorry.
He used to be behind Mahomes.
Well, I know. I mixed that up. Yeah. He's on this slate. I just forget who it's for.
Yeah, I forget off the top of my head, so you have to look at it.
But anyway.
I think he's anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying.
He's on the Chargers.
Chargers, yeah. Okay, Chargers.
I mean, going from Mahomes to Herbert, still pretty nice.
For sure. Yeah, I look, either way, 40 mil. But Tom Kennedy, also the CEO of Stokastic. Do you want to move on to Washington and Kansas City, or you got anything else here?
Yeah, let's move on. I think Kennedy's the best receiver play here. Trinity Benson probably second, but we don't need to spend much time there.
Okay. So Kansas City and Washington, let's break this one down, because Ron Rivera said he wants to play his starters for a half, but because they have so many soft tissue injuries, like the offensive line is banged up. A lot of guys are banged up. I think the problem is that even though Carson Wentz is healthy, he's like, I don't know if I want to put him behind a skeleton crew up front for a half and have him get hurt. And then Andy Reid, who is, widely considered one of the least trustworthy coaches. And I say this from a coach speak perspective in the league, up along with the likes of Pete Carroll and such. He says he wants his starters to play a full half, Matt.
You can rinse and repeat Andy Reid every single preseason. He has the same routine. He just doesn't follow it. So he always says in preseason week 1, my starters are going to play a quarter. They usually don't. Then in week 2, he says his starters are going to play a half. They usually don't. So it's really hard to actually determine how much the Kansas City guys are going to play. Like, he actually did play Mahomes for 11 snaps in their first game, which was more than preseason week 1 the previous year. But again, I don't buy it that he's going to play Mahomes a half. We haven't projected much less than that, which I think is fine. I actually gave all the quarterbacks right on the dot 1 quarter apiece. Last
year was kind of crazy though, because Mahomes played a quarter and a half, played 32 snaps, which is, a lot for a quarter and a half. And he was terrible. He averaged like 3 yards per attempt. It was just a horrible performance, clearly an outlier, but let's just say Mahomes does play a half. If if you were projecting Mahomes to play a half, where does he rank for you on this slate? And where does
without a doubt, yeah,
right, and and then you have Kelsey, and then you have MVS because Juju's out, right? And I'm assuming
Nicole's out too. Well,
is Hardman confirmed out?
No, I think it's more coach speak out of Andy Reid. I mean, the guy hasn't practiced. Why would he play?
Got carted off on like Wednesday.
He's gonna play in the game.
I know it's minor, but I don't know, man. If he really does play even like a quarter and a half, what does that do for someone like Mahomes and the starters in this offense? That's my question on a 3-game slate.
Yeah, I think you should consider Mahomes in tournaments for all the reasons you laid out. I probably still am not going to play him in cash just because I don't trust Andy Reid at all, looking more to the Detroit signal callers. But if he plays a half, if you could guarantee me that right now, he's the number 1 quarterback on the slate. And I don't think it's close.
No, I agree. And I also think that would be one of those spots where like, I'm definitely looking to stack him with somebody.
Yeah, he's going to get there passing. And we know how efficient he is. The other thing with this is, like you mentioned, Washington doesn't want to trot out Carson Wentz behind a makeshift offensive line. The Chiefs don't have Juju or Mecole Hardman. So, I mean, he's going to be throwing to like Justin Watson and Darius Fountain. I don't know how much you really need to see of that, but I'm not Andy Reid. Maybe he plays him a full half. And for that reason, with that chance, I think you should at least consider him in tournaments, put him in your player pool for sure. And I agree with you. I would stack him. Again, no Juju, no Mecole. MVS ran around on 13% of the dropbacks last week. Sky Moore was already up at 43%. They were really evaluating the rookie, but I would imagine both of those jump. If Mahomes is going to play a half, you're going to see a lot of MVS. You're going to see a lot of Sky. Justin Watson also ran around on 43% of the dropbacks. He's jumped Josh Gordon on the depth chart. All projections coming out of the Kansas City beat do not have Josh Gordon on the roster. They have Justin Watson. So he's another guy I think you could see a healthy amount of tonight. Darius Fountain would be the last guy I consider. He's kind of battling for a roster spot. I think if they kept 7, he would probably make it. But those
What about running backs? Like, what about this Pacheco fella that everybody's talking about?
I don't know how much you see of him because, like the starters play a half. Does Pacheco get a full half or does he rotate with Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the half? You know what I mean?
Right.
Plus they have 6 healthy backs, which is the most on the slate. And, like, Jerick McKinnon's not going to play today. Maybe they get Ronald Jones involved with the first team. So unlike the Mahomes situation where if he plays a full half, he's not going to be splitting time. There's not going to be anyone rotating in and out. At running back, I think you see multiple players there, which still makes them hard to play, considering there's 6 of them and teams like Denver only have 3.
Is there anyone else you want to talk about for the Chiefs or for the Washington side, backups?
Washington, I think we should look at the tight ends. You mentioned how hurt they are. They had to take a defender and play him as scout team tight end because they're so hurt at this position.
Yeah.
No Logan Thomas, no John Bates, no Cole Turner, no Curtis Hodges. Eli Wolf played 2 snaps in week 1. They're clearly not even attempting to see what he has. He's going to get cut. That means Armani Rogers and Samus Reyes, who was also hurt, he just returned to practice, are going to handle all the snaps. Armani Rogers is a converted quarterback. He went to Ohio where he kind of split time there at the quarterback position. Now he's full on tight end. I don't know what Washington's deal is converting all these QBs to tight end, but they're trying to do it again with Armani Rogers. He's at least athletic enough to get it done. He's my favorite tight end on the slate. I like him a little more than the Buffalo guys, but again, this is close.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this since we're wrapping up the early slate. Okay. If we're wrapping up the early slate, who are your favorite options? If you were to just give me a couple at each position to make life easier for the people out there watching.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to say, Sam Howell is a really mobile quarterback for Washington. Like you mentioned, I don't think we see a ton of Wentz or Heineke, so Howell is in play. But to wrap this up position by position, I like Tim Boyle and David Blau. I have a slight preference towards Blau. I think there's just more upside for him in terms of snaps. And from there, I'd go to the Denver guys. They would be tier 2 quarter. Going to play a full half, he would immediately ascend to number 1, but there's just a lot of nuance with him. At the running back position, I think it's Denver, Stevie Scott being number 1. Did you lose my internet again?
You're back now. Where did
you lose me?
We're good. If it gets bad, I'll try and.
All right.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Up on my screen.
I'll let you know.
So I'm not even touching it. Anyway, RBs, Stevie Scott is number 1 for me. I think Jaquan Hardy is number 2 just because it's so condensed in Denver. At wide receiver.
So you just play both of those guys, even on a 3-game slate, doesn't matter?
I think you can play them both. If you're ranking 3 and 4 behind them, I would say Raheem, Blackshear, and Jamar Jefferson. Wide receiver, there's a couple guys I think that are worth mentioning. In your Mahomes stacks, I like Justin Watson a lot. Again, back of the roster guy being evaluated to make the team. Detroit's Tom Kennedy plays a ton in these games. He had a 62% route share in their last game. And number 3 for me would be Isaiah Hodgins. Again, he's not going to play quite as much because we're expecting Diggs, Davis, and McKenzie to play a little bit, but he's still at a 77% route share in week 1. Even if that drops a little bit, he should be more than feasible. Those would be the top 3 receivers. And then tight end, I think you're focusing on just Buffalo and Washington outside of GPPs. Quentin Morris and Armani Rogers would be the 2.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just throw one caveat in for tight end, right?
Yeah.
Best case scenario at tight end for these guys is what? Like
a touchdown.
Okay. Why not just play Kelsey at the same price? And even if you get a quarter and a half out of him, he's the top pass catcher on the team with no Juju and no Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, love that. I think it's the same rationale for playing Mahomes, MVS, any of the starters. Right. Love for sure.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking because tight end is such a bad position that if Kelsey does come out and have a big drive or 2 early on and they're out there for a quarter and a half, that might be all you need, right? It will be all you need if he has a decent drive.
Yeah, for sure. So just if you're looking at the projections, know that every Chiefs player is projected for a quarter, the starters, that is. If you think they're going to play more than that, I would just bump them in Fantasy Cruncher. And if you're playing tournaments and you want to build Chiefs specific lineups, that would be a way to do it.
I've been saying this in all my betting videos at the beginning. It's like, you're more than welcome to tail me. That'd be great. I'm going to give you my picks, but preseason is all about assumptions. Like, of course it's about gathering information, but then you still have to make assumptions based on what these coaches are saying, especially when a lot of them speak really, like in code a lot of times. So yeah, like you said, if you're watching the show and you think Kansas City starters play more than a quarter, then obviously you're going to like them more than say the projections we have them projected at a quarter. So it's really just playing time. It's not the same, like everyone gets 4 quarters.
Yeah, or if you just even want to potentially create an edge, play the what if game. Like the Chiefs might not be as owned as they should be because I'm projecting them for a quarter. Some other places around the industry aren't projecting them for a full half. If you believe Andy Reid and you want to take him at his word and bump him in the projections, you could gain an edge that way. And then just doing it manually, that's how you'd get more Chiefs.
All right, let's talk about the night slate here. Some interesting games. Before we do, though, check out Prize Picks as well. It's crazy, but Prize Picks has a lot of player props for the NFL preseason. If you already, like I said, I talk about this in conjunction because with each other, because if you use the promo code or you have the Tua promo code, it's Stokastic, and you have the preseason projections, and then you're also over there at Prize Picks, or you haven't signed up yet, you can use the promo code Stokastic, $100 first match deposit bonus when you sign up for the first time. They have preseason. I mean, obviously they have baseball and all of the other sports, golf, a million different offerings over there. And they'll have obviously regular season NFL. You're building lineups with player props. There's no over, there's no under. There's no juice, there's no juice on either side. You're just taking the over or the under. And you're building lineups. If you hit 5 in your lineup, if you go 5, you're 10Xing your entry. You can go 4 as well. You can build a 3-person. But unlike a traditional parlay, if you hit 4 of 5, you still 2x your money. If you hit 3 of 5, you still make money back, unlike what you're going to get at any other traditional book with their parlays. So check it out. And yeah, Matt, it is just very cool that, especially for someone like you that is spending all this time, that Prize Picks actually has player props, because you're not finding that anywhere else for the preseason.
Dude, they have punter props.
I know. I mean,
I'm not projecting punts, but like how not only are they doing preseason, third stringers at that, they're doing punter props.
I know. I saw that the other day.
I'll see your punter props and raise you total punts in the first 8 minutes of the game on Prize Picks today. That's incredible value there, I'm sure.
My favorite one today is Hassan Haskins. I think he's projected incredibly low. 25.5 rushing yards. Tennessee's going to have 2 healthy running backs. Like, you look at their roster, one of the guys is a fullback. Dontrell Hilliard's been hurt in practice, and plus he's their number 2 back. I'm not sure he plays, even though he's returned to practice. And Trenton Cannon's a pure special teamer. He played 3 snaps in their preseason opener. It's just Hassan Haskins and Julius Chestnut. 25.5 yards seems very doable for Haskins. I really like that one.
Awesome. Check it out, man. I'm telling you, Prize Picks, a lot of opportunities over there, especially if you have the tools. Up to $100 first match deposit bonus. Yeah, is the promo code, is it Stokastic yet, or is it still Awesome?
On all my videos, I have been still saying Awesome. That's what we got.
All right. Use Tyler, next time, tell me that. Don't make me ask you, bro. You heard me say it.
I just said it
Don't
this
make me
morning
look like
in
a fool over here. What's that?
I just used it in a video this morning.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. That could be confusing. Up to $100 first match deposit bonus. Sick platform over there for sure. And you can do cross sports. If you wanted to do football and baseball today, mix them together, you got that too. Check it out. All right. So let's go. Oh, and Bill said, thanks, Lafayette, Matt. Got to go catch the rest later. Great show. Yeah, sure, Bill. That works for me. You would come back and catch the replay later for the night slate. Whatever works, man. Appreciate you hanging out there. And hey, if you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, atone for your sins, my friends. Let's get to at least 100. I know these aren't the big NFL shows, but we're at 72, 28 away. I think it's entirely doable that we can get to 100 likes here, and subscribe if you haven't done so as well. All right. Next up, who do we got? We got Pittsburgh and Jacksonville. Are you buying into Kenny Pickett?
I think we need to see a little more of him, and he played the most snaps in week 1. I like him for DFS because he runs a little bit, which is solid. As far as him as like a first-round pick, I think that was a little bit of a stretch, and Pittsburgh probably just could have waited for this upcoming class, which is by all accounts going to be really good. As far as preseason, I think you might see 4 quarterbacks for this team. Chris Oladokun didn't play in week 1, but they didn't cut him, which was a surprise to me. So they have 4 healthy quarterbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just quarter for these guys.
I disagree. Well, did you see what Mike Tomlin said about the rotation for this game? That
it's probably in my notes.
I'm sure you did. But he said, remember last week it was Trubisky, Rudolph, and then Pickett.
Yeah.
This week he wants to go Trubisky and then put Pickett in, but he wants to keep the starting offensive line out there with Kenny Pickett for a while and then Rudolph. So what exactly does that mean? Like, does that mean we get Kenny? I think he said he wants Kenny Pickett in before the end of the first half. I believe that's what he said. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, this job isn't decided. We on the back end still have them projected pretty evenly. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do quarter. That's not how we have it projected. We have about a third for Trubisky, about a third for Pickett, about a third for Rudolph, and then Oladokun with just a handful of snaps at the end of the game. That's kind of what we saw in week 1. It's still Pickett with the lead. And I think that makes sense just because he's the rookie. Like, Rudolph's a veteran with this team. I don't think you need to see too much of him, but I think if Pickett is going to be your starter, at least as a chance to be, wouldn't you want to see him with your first team offensive line?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I was curious. That's why I was curious to see where you stood on it. Like, it would make sense then probably to say, all right, Trubisky for a quarter and then get Pickett in and then just keep most of the starting offensive line out there for a bit with them. And then maybe let Pickett play into the third a little bit. I don't know, but I didn't really think about Oladokun. Maybe he does play.
I don't know why they're keeping him on the roster.
Yeah. The only reason I was thinking that it would only be the 3 of those guys was because it gives you ample time to develop and evaluate Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. And that's what they did in preseason week 1. The only thing that made me question that was, why is Oladokun still on the roster?
Right. That's a good point. I mean, shit, dude, the Jags have cut 3 quarterbacks already since the Hall of Fame game. They did. They cut Slaughter. They cut Luton. And then they brought EJ Perry back, who they had cut previously.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Meaning, it's I don't know. It doesn't matter. But okay, so all in all, are there any quarterbacks you like from Pittsburgh and any skill players you want to talk about?
Pittsburgh, I wouldn't mess with too much. There's going to be a ton of teams that we talk about in a second here that have 2 quarterbacks with really good playing time projections. I don't think you mess with the situation. Running back is a different story. They're only going to have 3 guys similar to last week, and they're giving Jalen Warren a full workload, 27 snaps, 19 routes. This guy's an awesome pass catcher. He handled a 3-down workload at Oklahoma State in college. And I think he's working ahead of either Snell or McFarland. I think he's going to make the team over one of these guys. But again, only 3 backs. Warren's the guy they're giving a huge workload. Receiver, probably not getting any of these guys. The route leader was Steven Sims, 55%. You can do a little bit better. Tight end is interesting, though. They only have 3 healthy tight ends. Connor Hayward ran a route on 51% of dropbacks. He's kind of like, he actually started his career as a running back at Michigan State, and then he got big and slowly transitioned to this like H back, and now he's making the full transition to tight end. So he's really athletic pass catcher, and only 3 tight ends there. So I'm going to play a lot of Jaylen Warren, and I'll definitely be playing Hayward. Jay Sternberg also projects pretty well just behind Hayward at tight end. It's really condensed there. I think you should look at both.
Okay. Yeah. And I did see that you have Jaylen Warren projected very high for this slate. So
yeah, he caught 5 passes in week 1.
Did he really?
Yeah. He's got really good pass catching upside. He's kind of like Anthony McFarland, little less explosive, but a little better as far as pass catching goes.
That offense was humming, man. It dropped like 32 points.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're trotting out Easton Stick. They're playing like legit NFL quarterbacks. So that makes sense when they're facing second and third stringers.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. What about on the other side of this one then? I don't know how much time. If there's certain games or teams that you don't want to spend a lot of time on, just hit me and we can move on and get the most time on these other ones. But Doug Peterson, horrible preseason record. He doesn't care, which is fine, but it does speak to what his plans generally are. Now, I only bring that up because do you think with such a young team as the new head coach for the first year and, so much uncertainty that maybe his preseason approach will be different in weeks 2 and 3 than it has been in the past?
He said the starters are going to play deep into the second quarter.
Yeah.
Again, you got to take him at his word. I'm not sure if I buy it entirely, but if that's the case, Travis Etienne's a pretty good play because of his pass catching upside. He played 22 snaps in preseason week 1, ran 12 routes. That's really good opportunity there. He was only behind Mekhi Sargent, and Sargent's getting cut. So if you think this trend continues, Etienne predictably, I think would have more overall opportunity than Sargent. That's the only guy I'm considering. Too many quarterbacks, too many receivers, too many tight ends.
Okay. Let's move on then, because we still got some games to cover here. Talking about the Tampa Bay Bucks and Tennessee, 37-point total here. Tom Brady's just missing in action. No one knows what's going on there. But does that mean that we see another healthy dose of Kyle Trask today?
Yeah, they're playing, or at least they have 3 other quarterbacks in addition to Brady, but Gabbard and Griffin are essentially just camp bodies. They're using them on the scout team. Trask was drafted pretty highly by this team. They're giving him the full Jordan Love treatment. They want to see what they have in their highly drafted quarterback behind Brady. Brady's 45 and he's still playing at an elite level, but at some point this is going to end and they need to know if Trask can potentially be the guy behind him. So he got 61 snaps in week 1. The issue with Trask is he's not mobile whatsoever, so he needs to get it done with his arms, and that puts him a tier below some of the mobile signal callers like Malik Willis and Skylar Thompson, who we'll talk about a little bit. The position I really want to hone in on here is running back. Another team with 3. I think Keyshawn Vaughn and Rachaad White should be at the top of your board for running back on the late slate. They just signed Patrick Laird off the street, so I'm not even sure we see a ton of him. Rachaad White has the pass catching skill set, which is going to give you those easy layup targets. And we saw that in week 1, but Vaughn has more opportunity. He played 23 snaps to White's 15 overall. I think you can play them both, and I'll be mixing and matching them in GPPs. A slight preference towards White because of his pass catching upside. Receiver is pretty wide here. You're going to see 8 guys. Tight end, you're going to see 4 guys. I think Cade Otton's probably the player I would consider most of that group, but I don't think you really need to mess with the receivers. They didn't even have a guy get to a 40% route share.
All right. I don't think so either. This is just another situation where Todd Bowles doesn't care about the preseason. So I wasn't sure if there's anybody that stands out as like, all right, man, let's showcase him or let's see what we have out of him, play him for however many quarters and just let him ride.
Yeah, the players that fit that bill are Rachaad White and Keyshawn Vaughn.
Okay. Do you like both of them a lot?
Yes, especially White because of his pass catching.
Okay. What about with Tennessee? Has Vrabel told us anything yet, or has he been pretty tight-lipped? Because I couldn't find anything. But I assume we get no Tannehill because he looked real good in those joint practices.
Yeah, Vrabel's not going to give you anything.
Yeah,
never does. He really surprised me in week 1. He played Treylon Burks a ton.
Well,
a ton.
Because he's been struggling so bad.
It's still crazy to me. Like Burks played 30 snaps and fellow rookie Kyle Phillips, who has been excelling in camp, played 3.
I think it's a matter of like Burks's first it was conditioning, then it was asthma, then it was a banged up whatever, then it was this and that. Like maybe they're really just not happy with where he is. And they're like, hey, listen, you're going to go play a half of football in week 1 of the preseason.
For that reason, he's a great play. Like,
yeah, sure.
30 snaps, 21 routes out of a round 1 draft pick, a hyper athletic one at that. Yeah, I'll play some Burks.
Sure.
And he's particularly interesting because Tennessee in general is a great situation tonight. Malik Willis, he's going to play a half of football. They actually gave him more than a half in their preseason week 1 game, but then they pulled him because he wouldn't stop running the ball. That's not great for maybe real life football, but for DFS, I'm certainly interested in Malik Willis's dual threat ability. He has the best rushing upside on the slate. And then their running back room is so thin. Hassan Haskins is an awesome play here. Another rookie out of Michigan. This guy's a big bruising back, 24 snaps, but he also ran 14 routes. He's a sneaky pass catcher. You're not going to see Henry. Dontrell Hilliard's been banged up. He's questionable here. Even if he does play, I'm not sure it's going to be a lot. Cannon is a special teamer. He only played 3 snaps. Troy Carter is a fullback. It's literally just Haskins and Julius Chestnut here. Haskins, I think, is the overall RB1 on the slate.
Oh, okay. Just to repeat that, Haskins is your number 1 overall running back on this 5-game slate.
Yes.
Okay. How far above other running backs is he for you? Like, is there a gap here?
There's a pretty sizable gap just because it's so condensed.
Okay. Good stuff. Yeah, this is what the people are here for, Matt. All right.
Love Haskins and his price picks prop.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm saying, use the projections, use the analysis, hit it up on Prize Picks. Awesome is the promo code. When are we going to change that though? It's kind of odd.
I don't know. I've been wondering that for a while.
Yeah, me too. Still gets you a deposit bonus up to $100, so it wouldn't matter. Literally could be anywhere as long as it works. San Francisco, Minnesota. I've been waiting to ask you a question on this. So I'm doing the betting video, Matt, and obviously I do them a day in advance because these lines swing so heavily and so quickly. So I try and get them out as early as possible, but you don't always have the information. Why were the Vikings laying 5 points?
Dude, I legit don't know. I think it's because Trey Lance isn't going to play.
Right, but
that's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, so you're on the same page as I am. It's good to know because when I analyze this game, I was like, listen, I'll tell you if I don't know or if I'm missing something. If I don't know, I'll tell you. And I don't feel comfortable with this game. But I'm just thinking, like, yeah, I know that Cousins is in a new system and he had COVID and whatever, but like, what do we really expect? Big run from Cousins and the starters under Kevin O'Connell in this game? Like 5 points?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so. How are you analyzing this one?
As far as the betting lines, it didn't make sense to me either.
Yeah,
I legit don't know.
How are you analyzing it from a DFS standpoint? Let's actually start with Minnesota here.
Okay. Minnesota, Kellen Mond's a great play. Let's start with there. You're not going to see much Cousins, if at all. I don't think he plays. Sean Mannion is a pocket statue. Monda's going to get a half, and he's extremely mobile. He automatically vaults into top 3 quarterbacks at the position on the night slate. Running back is also really thin. If Madison plays, it's going to be minimally. He only got 8 snaps in their preseason week 1. Kene Nwangwu, he's this like special teams ace, I suppose you could call him. He played at Iowa State behind Breece Hall and David Montgomery, so he never actually got a chance to start, but he's hyper athletic. They're letting him run a little bit as a true running back this preseason. He can catch as well, so he's a player I think that projects fine. He's still behind Haskins, but I'm comfortable using Nwangwu. And that's about it. Receiver, they didn't really focus their snaps on anybody in particular. They have 9 guys out there, but again, highest route share was 55%. That was Olabisi Johnson, just 17 routes. So I'm not sure we want to look at running backs, and then they have 5 tight ends.
With San Francisco, is this one a little bit easier to look at? I mean, Trey Lance looked pretty solid in that debut. Or no, I'm sorry, in the preseason opener against the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love's been a mixed bag too. We'll get into that some other time. I think, we'll get into that some other time. Green Bay played last night anyway. But do you want to, because you're not getting any Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. So essentially what we're looking at with no Trey Lance and then Jimmy G, just whatever, you're getting Nate Sudfeld and Brock Purdy.
Purdy's kind of mobile. He sort of has that like Ian Book mobility, which is still going to be behind guys like Skylar Thompson, Kellen Mond. I don't know if you want to target that. GPP, sure, it's fine. He gives you somewhat of a floor, but he's still a clear tier below those guys. You'll see 4 running backs out there at least: Hasty, Sermon, Davis, Price, and Mason. So that's just a little more crowded than some other situations. Receiver, they're going to have at least 8 guys, and they spread their routes pretty evenly. No one ran more than 14 routes in their first preseason game. That was Danny Gray. So if you want to take a shot, fine, but still not going to recommend it. And then they have 4 tight ends. So this is a team I'm kind of fading altogether outside of maybe a GPP Purdy.
Man, you weren't lying about Haskins, though, by the way. Just looking at the projections, you've got him considerably higher than anyone else.
Yeah, at best, he's in a 2-back timeshare. At worst, he's in like a 2.5-back timeshare with whatever Hilliard's going to play, which I don't think is a lot.
Anything else from this game?
I don't think so. This isn't one with a ton of plays, just Mon basically, and then maybe a Nwangwu.
All right, so I just pulled this up because I wanted you to hear it, since we're going to talk about Las Vegas and Miami. That Mike McDaniel quote I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So when he was asked whether the week is set up for Tua to start in the preseason, he goes, "This week is set up to not know what I'm going to do." It's like, all right, man. Okay. Is this how we're going to do this? And then if you just look at all of his quotes, they're essentially just, wherever the wind blows type of thing. But Matt, I have a theory on this, right? I don't think he intended on playing Tua really at all in the preseason until Tua started to struggle. And I'm wondering now if he's like, all right, I'm a first-year head coach. I don't know what I have in this guy. He's an early first-round pick, and our offense depends on it. Maybe it comes down to Tua just not playing well in camp and in these scrimmages, and McDaniel being like, all right, maybe I need to reevaluate. Maybe I actually do need to get him some snaps in an actual game.
Yeah, that's a reasonable theory. Again, we've gotten nothing actionable from him. So it's complete guesswork.
Yep. Pure speculation. I have no idea.
The question I have is, if he plays, how much is it?
Right.
Right now, I have him projected for 10% of the snaps. So again, that's pure guesswork, just basically him being the starter. And the fact that it wasn't just Tua. They didn't play Bridgewater either. Skylar Thompson took every single snap.
Every snap. That surprised me.
Me too. But for DFS purposes, that still leaves me weary with Tua and Bridgewater. And Thompson, I think at worst, is playing a half of this game. At best, he might take every snap again. And he's mobile. He's a solid dual threat at Kansas State. He's a rookie. I don't think he makes the roster, but some teams don't care about that. And Miami appears to be one, at least with a 1-week sample. We'll see how he treats it today. But it's not really condensed anywhere but quarterback. And because of Thompson's mobility, he should be someone you look at.
Okay. Thompson's one of those guys that you'd really like to get, 3 quarters out of if you are going to play him. But it's hard to say. Like, I don't really know. I had no idea that Mac Jones was going to get considerable snaps last night. And he did. A lot of these guys, it's just, you kind of don't know. You do not know. So with Mike McDaniel, how tough does it make it to analyze from a DFS standpoint?
Really tough. I think this is the most volatile team.
Okay. Yeah. Glad to hear we're on the same page with that one. And then the running back position. I mean, how many different running backs are we going to see touch the ball in this game, if you had to guess?
5 minimum. And then if Mostert's not going to play, but if Edmonds plays 6, so too many to target. Receiver, at least 8, too many to target. Tight end, 5, too many to target.
Okay. Yeah, like last week we saw Zaquandre White, we saw Sony Michel, we saw Salvin Ahmed, or Salmon Head, as we affectionately call him, Gerard Dokes, Miles Gaskin. It's too much. It's too much. I'm with you. I think this is a good spot to just avoid. Do you want to? Josh McDaniels seems like a guy that actually cares about winning, or actually, I won't say cares about winning preseason games, but his backups have looked damn good in the preseason so far, Matt.
Yeah, Skylar Thompson running around out there. He's been productive, far more productive than some other backups.
No, sorry, I was talking about. I'm sorry, that's my fault because it's McDaniel, and I flipped over to the Raiders, saying Josh McDaniels' backups have looked pretty damn good because they've played 2 games already.
Yeah, Jarrett Stidham, he looked really good as well. And you're right. They've also been a team I've been a little surprised by. It mainly just came from playing Josh Jacobs in the Hall of Fame game. He's hurt now, so it doesn't matter. But that surprised me. As far as their team tonight, they aren't really condensed at many positions, which I think is tough. You're going to see 3 QBs, 5 RBs, 7 receivers, at least 2 tight ends, maybe 3. I think if you're playing anyone, tight end might be a position to look at here. But even there, they didn't have one clear guy running routes. Their route runner, Jesper Horsted, went down. So now they just have a bunch of blockers. I think if you're targeting anyone on this team, it's Tyron Johnson. So they have a lot of receivers, but Tyron's been a guy that's been getting a lot of snaps. He has a 75% route share this preseason. I don't really see any reason that changes. He's the lone player I'm interested in for Vegas.
That's it. All right. We got nice. All right. Making good time here. Dallas and the LA Chargers. And if you guys look, if you want to come back later and freshen up on this before this 7 p.m. slate starts, towards the end of the early slate, feel free to do so. And I got the video up on OddsShopper. I broke down every single game for Saturday. I already did one for Sunday. That'll be out later tonight. We'll have one for Monday. Every single game for every single slate. We got you over on the OddsShopper channel. If you like dabbling in the sports betting stuff like my buddy Mike Campbell does. Mike loves the sports betting in the DF. He should. And if you want $1,000 risk-free bet, BetMGM, link it should be in the description. I'm sure Tyler can throw it in the chat, but it's one of those things where you win or you lose, you still win, and they want people over there. And in order to do so, they give you opportunities to place up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Could be 10, 50, 100, whatever you're comfortable with. Put it on whatever the hell you want. And if you win, you win. If you don't, they get your money back. So that's pretty sweet as well over there, BetMGM. Let's do it, Matt. Last one. This line has moved a decent amount. I was happy to personally see that I got in on this before it swung to where it did. I think I got the Chargers at like -1.5. They're -4.5 now. It opened at Cowboys -1.5, which seemed insane because Mike McCarthy clearly doesn't care about the preseason. Neither does Brandon Staley, but he has Chase Daniel. And I know you kind of shit on our boy Easton Stick earlier for good reason, but he's not bad in terms of mobility. He actually has several rushing touchdowns in the preseason over the past couple of years. On the other side, dude, how bad does Cooper Rush look? How bad does he? Ben DiNucci, the biggest wild card is, does Will Grier play? Because he's been the only one looking decent in camp for them.
Yeah, he's expected to.
Yeah.
So for DFS, I think you immediately turn this into a 3-way timeshare at quarterback.
For
Just
sure.
Too many guys to target for DFS. But Grier, I think, is their only hope for betting. If you're a Cowboys backer, I am not, for the reasons you laid out. And then the other positions for this team, none of them are condensed. Running back, you're going to have 4 guys. Receiver, you'll have 9. Tight end, you'll have 4. Pretty hard to take any of them, I think.
Easy enough. Is it if you were to take like the teams you're least interested in for this slate, just in general, whether it's because of uncertainty, whether it's just because, like you said, they aren't condensed, where does Dallas slot in at the skill positions for you? Like, where would they rank in terms of appeal?
I think they're probably the least appealing. Jacksonville's close,
Okay.
but Jacksonville at least has like an ETN that has a sliver of upside. I don't know if anyone in Dallas does.
And Miami's pretty rough, I would imagine, too, just because we have no idea.
Yes, exactly. The only one I like there is Skyler.
Right. And that's assuming Tua it doesn't play or is limited. But like you said earlier, you have to make assumptions. Like, you have to speculate on playing time.
You have to.
No one's just going to lay it out there for you,
Yeah, exactly.
What about the Chargers, Dan? Like, do you think Chase Daniel gets a lot of run?
They essentially gave him a half in week 1, and then they gave Stick a half. Daniel's better. He'll be facing the better players. Stick is mobile, so I have a preference towards him. He's still not quite up there with like the Malik Willis and Skylar Thompsons in terms of mobility, but he's in that just below that next tier where I think you can certainly take a stab on Stick in tournaments. And then he's really the only one. They're going to play 6 running backs, 7 receivers, 4 tight ends. The only player at the skill position players receiver is the one I'm most interested in. Joe Reed, 78% route share. Michael Bandy, 64% route share. Reed got banged up in practice, but he returned. So I'm anticipating him being healthy and fine out there. Just watch him if you play him. Make sure he's actually out there. And if he misses for whatever reason, Bandy would become an even better play.
And this is an interesting team too, because, last year you had the same backups. So in week 2, you can actually go back, look at last season and see that Chase Daniel and Easton Stick basically split time.
Yeah.
In week two.
And I think we'll see the same here.
Me too. And yeah, at least now we have 1 year of what teams are doing when there were only 3 preseason games, because 2020 was COVID. And seriously though, how much can you take away from the weeks where you have 4 preseason games? I would assume it does change some things up, right? I know it does if you're evaluating it from a betting perspective. Yeah,
definitely. The teams have changed their approach. Like you said, now a lot of them are using joint practices, and there's no, whatever they used to call like your tune-up game where you'd actually play your starters a fair amount. They're not really doing that as much anymore.
All right. Well, free content today. MLB ownership projections, entirely free. Before we get out of here, like I said, the promo code TUA, you get Matt's preseason projections. They're super valuable for $5. Not just that though, you can use them for betting, for prize picks, where you have the promo code AWESOMO. See how all of this just works in tandem? Because they got prize picks, player props over there. I mean, come on, for preseason NFL. It's insane. So check all that out. Shout out to Tyler Zander for producing this show. I'll ask Matt, because this is the way to do it and want to help you guys out. We already locked for the 1 p.m. But for those of you that won't be around, and this could maybe help you out, who are your top options? We'll round it out with this. Top options, couple at each position for the 5-game main slate, and then we'll say goodbye.
Top 3 at quarterback would be Malik Willis, Skylar Thompson, and Kellen Mond, all of whom are expected to play around a half, maybe more, and all of them have good mobility. At running back, Hassan Haskins really stands out. Julius Chestnut is actually in the top 3 in terms of projection too, just because they're so condensed in Tennessee. But beyond those two, I think Kenny Nwangwu and Jaylen Warren are 2 solid plays at the position. Tight end, again, this is going to be very volatile, but Chego Okonkwo didn't actually mention him in the Tennessee segment. It's a condensed tight end share in Tennessee. He's a rookie, an athletic rookie tight end out of Maryland, and he's going to see a lot of time tonight. Behind him, I think Connor Hayward for Pittsburgh and Cade Otton are firmly in play. Jay Sternberger right behind him. At wide receiver, there's a bunch of guys I think you can target. Joe Reed highlights the list, assuming he's fully healthy. Just make sure you search his name on Twitter or whatever. Look at the beat reporters before the game kicks off. Tyron Johnson, huge snap share for him. And then behind those guys, I think you can look at some volatile pieces on some other teams, like Olabisi Johnson played a lot, Amir Smith-Marset. I would use the projections and use a bit of randomness for wide receiver, to be honest.
Beautiful. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. Check out all the college stuff he's doing at Odd Shopper here for DFS soon enough. Preseason projections and all of that. Follow me at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. And again, Odd Shopper. We got some shit, man. We got some stuff happening. And the fantasy football. If you guys are getting into fantasy football, best ball, all that good stuff, you should be checking those channels out. We got you covered through and through, top to bottom, going into your drafts, going into best ball, all of that. And we'll see you back here soon. Good luck today. Have a good rest of the weekend. Peace.